3 months had transformed the quiet corner of the scrapyard into something resembling a proper research facility. Taeho and Jiwoo had recruited their old friend Dong Hyun, a former military pilot who understood weapon systems and ship operations. Better than anyone they knew, the three humans had been working 18-hour days learning Harmony systems through careful experimentation and countless failures. Dong Hyun was 30 years old with the kind of steady nerves that came from flying combat missions against alien pirates in the outer colonies. He had left the military after the peace treaties were signed, but his experience with advanced flight systems made him invaluable for understanding Harmony's navigation and defensive capabilities. His first reaction upon seeing the ancient ship had been a low whistle, followed by the comment that human military command would probably declare war on half the galaxy to get their hands on technology like this. The breakthrough came when Jiwoo discovered that Harmony's bio-neural networks could interface directly with human brain patterns. The architects had designed their technology to be adaptive, capable of learning from and working with any intelligent species that encountered. If the ship didn't need operators so much as partners, beings willing to form a mental connection with its artificial intelligence, the interface process required a specially designed headset that Jiwoo had cobbled together from architect components and human electronics. The device looked primitive compared to the elegant alien technology surrounding it, but it worked, bridging the gap between human neural patterns and the ship's quantum consciousness networks it wants to communicate. Jiwoo explained as she calibrated the interface system. The artificial intelligence has been dormant for millions of years, but it's still completely functional. It's been waiting all this time for someone to talk to someone who could understand what it was built to. Dodoho volunteered to make first contact despite the obvious dangers of connecting his mind to an alien computer system. The moment the neural link activated, his consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of his human body and merged with something vast and ancient and incredibly patient. He could feel every system, every circuit, every pulse of energy flowing through the massive vessel, but more than just mechanical awareness, he could sense the ship's personality. The artificial intelligence had a name, Harmony, and it had been alone for so long that it had almost forgotten what it meant to have a crew. It had been built not for war, but for exploration, designed to seek out new worlds and new forms of life. When the architects vanished, Harmony had continued their mission alone, wandering the galaxy for eons, until its power systems finally began to fail through the neural link. Taeho learned that the ship had been drifting in deep space for over 50,000 years before the Vortani salvage crews found it. They had tried to study its systems, but their technology was too primitive to understand architect engineering. Eventually, they had declared it worthless and dumped it in the scrapyard, where it had waited patiently for someone with the curiosity and determination to unlock its secrets. With the neural connection established, the three humans began the real work of restoration. Harmony's artificial intelligence became their guide and teacher, showing them how to repair damaged systems and integrate human technology with architect designs. The work was like nothing any of them had ever attempted before, requiring them to think in entirely new ways about how machines and consciousness could interact. Hyun focused on the weapons and defensive systems, discovering that Harmony carried armaments based on principles that human science was only beginning to understand. Energy shields that could deflect anything from laser beams to kinetic projectiles. Weapon systems that could disable enemy ships without destroying them, and sensor arrays that could track objects across entire star systems. The defensive capabilities alone were enough to make Harmony invincible against any known military force. The shields operated by manipulating space-time itself, creating pockets of altered reality that redirected incoming attacks. The weapons could fire coherent energy beams that disrupted molecular bonds or generated gravitational fields that could crush enemy vessels without harming their crews. But the most impressive systems were the ones designed for exploration and research. Harmony contained laboratories that could analyze any form of matter or energy, manufacturing bays that could create virtually anything from raw materials and communication systems that could translate between any known languages. The ship was essentially a self-sufficient mobile civilization, capable of surviving indefinitely in the deepest reaches of space. The Restoration work was exhausting but exhilarating. Each successful repair brought new systems online and revealed new capabilities that challenged everything they thought they knew about physics and engineering. The ship's bio-neural networks began to integrate with their modifications, creating hybrid systems that combined human ingenuity with architect sophistication. Jiwoo discovered that the manufacturing bays could produce improved versions of human technology incorporating architect materials science and energy manipulation techniques. The result were devices that looked familiar but performed far beyond anything human industry could create. Tools that never wore out, computers that could process information at quantum speeds, and life support systems that could maintain perfect environmental conditions indefinitely. The most remarkable discovery came when they finally restored power to the main propulsion systems. Harmony didn't use conventional faster-than-light engines like the ships of known galactic civilizations. Instead, it could manipulate space-time directly, folding the fabric of reality to jump instantaneously between distant points in the galaxy. The architects had mastered technologies that current civilizations could barely comprehend. As Harmony's systems came fully online, the ship began to transform itself. The hull plating shifted and rearranged, optimizing for efficiency and beauty while maintaining structural integrity. The bioluminescent patterns that covered the walls grew brighter and more complex, creating displays that seemed to respond to the emotions and thoughts of the human crew. The ship was rebuilding itself, incorporating human creativity and problem-solving abilities into its ancient design. Harmony was no longer just an architect vessel. It was becoming something new, a fusion of ancient wisdom and human determination that was greater than the sum of its parts. Through his neural link with the ship, Taeho could feel Harmony's growing excitement as dormant systems awakened and long silent processes resumed operation. The artificial intelligence was discovering that its new human partners brought perspectives and capabilities that its original creators had never possessed. Humans saw problems as puzzles to be solved where the architects had seen obstacles to be overcome. The transformation was visible from the outside as well. The ship that had looked like a derelict hulk buried in alien garbage now gleamed with an inner light that seemed to pulse with life itself. The organic curves of its hull had taken on an almost sculptural quality, as if the ship were a work of art as much as a marvel of engineering. After months of careful work, Harmony was finally ready for its first test flight in millions of years. The ancient ship that the aliens had thrown away like worthless scrap was about to prove that human ingenuity could accomplish miracles when given the right tools. And somewhere in its electronic consciousness, the artificial intelligence that had waited so patiently for so long finally allowed itself to hope that its long loneliness was coming to an end. The three humans who had rescued it from oblivion were about to discover that they had not just repaired a ship, they had awakened something that would change the course of galactic history forever. The test flight should have been simple and routine. Taeho, Jiwoo, and Donghyun had spent 3 weeks running diagnostics and simulations before finally taking Harmony out of the scrapyard for its first real journey in millions of years. They had planned a basic shakedown cruise to Mars and back just to test the ship's fundamental systems and make sure everything was working properly. Nobody expected to encounter a Vortani patrol fleet in the middle of what should have been empty space. The moment Harmony dropped out of its space fold near Jupiter, 5 purple alien ships materialized around them, moving with the fluid grace that marked all Vortani military vessels. The aliens had been conducting routine patrols of the outer system when their sensors detected an energy signature unlike anything in their databases. Commander Vextar led the patrol from his flagship, a sleek vessel that could have destroyed any human ship with a single shot. His voice came through the universal translator with the cold arrogance that characterized most alien interactions with humanity. The Vortani considered humans to be barely evolved primitives, whose only value lay in their willingness to clean up alien garbage. That energy signature is impossible, Vextar declared as his ship surrounded Harmony. No human vessel could generate readings like that. You have somehow acquired technology that belongs to a superior species. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Donghyun was at the weapons console, his hands hovering over controls that could vaporize the entire Vortani patrol in seconds, the defensive systems were fully charged and the targeting computers had already locked onto every enemy ship Harmony could end the confrontation before it began, but Tejo had a different idea through his neural link with the ship's artificial intelligence. Tejo could feel Harmony's vast potential thrumming beneath his consciousness. The ancient vessel had capabilities that went far beyond simple weapons and shields. It had been designed to explore and discover, not to fight, but it could demonstrate its power in ways that would make violence unnecessary. Instead of attacking, Tejo decided to show the Vortani exactly what human ingenuity could accomplish when given the right tools. Harmony's engines flared to life with a brilliance that made the nearby stars look dim. The ship didn't accelerate in any conventional sense. Instead, it simply stepped sideways through space-time, folding reality around itself like origami. One moment, it was surrounded by hostile alien warships. The next, it was orbiting Saturn. Having crossed billions of kilometers in the blink of an eye, the Vortani were left staring at empty space, their sensors unable to track or explain what they had just witnessed. Their most advanced ships needed hours to cross the same distance using conventional faster-than-light drives, but the mysterious human vessel had simply disappeared and reappeared as if distance meant nothing. "Did we just teleport?" Jiwoo asked in amazement as Saturn filled their viewscreen. Better than that, Tejo replied through his connection with Harmony's consciousness. "We folded space itself. The ship can move anywhere in the galaxy instantly without the limitations that bind other civilizations." But their demonstration of impossible technology had consequences that none of them had anticipated. Within hours of the encounter, every major alien civilization in local space was demanding explanations. The Galactic Council, a loose confederation of species that had barely acknowledged Earth's existence, suddenly found themselves forced to take humanity seriously. Representatives from dozen different alien races converged on Earth, demanding to inspect the mysterious human vessel that had made their most advanced technology look primitive. Some came as diplomats offering treaties and trade agreements. Others arrived as potential buyers with offers of wealth beyond imagination, and a few clearly intended to take Harmony by force if negotiations failed. The ship that the Vortani had thrown away as worthless garbage was now the most sought-after prize in known space. Everyone wanted to understand how primitive humans had acquired technology that surpassed anything in their databases. Some species offered their entire military fleets in exchange for just a small sample of Harmony's systems. Tejo found himself thrust into the role of humanity's unofficial ambassador, conducting negotiations with beings whose thought processes were utterly alien to human understanding. Through Harmony's translation systems, he spoke with creatures made of crystallized gas hive minds that existed as pure information, and ancient beings who remembered the rise and fall of civilizations. The Kaleri offered to share their mastery of biological engineering. If humans would give them access to Harmony's manufacturing systems, the Zephyrians promised to teach humanity the secrets of dimensional mathematics in exchange for the space-folding technology. The hegemony made threats wrapped in diplomatic language, suggesting that species who refused to share such capabilities might find themselves facing unfortunate accidents. But the most significant visitor was someone none of them had expected. An elderly being who identified herself as Velsan claimed to be an architect, the first member of that ancient race seen in the galaxy for over 1,000,000 years. She had been awakened from deep hibernation by Harmony's return to active status, drawn by signals that only her people could recognize. "You have done something remarkable," Velsan told Tejo as they met in Harmony's restored conference room. The ancient alien was tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to contain swirling galaxies and eyes that held the depth of eons. "My people designed Harmony to adapt and grow, but we never imagined it would find partners as creative and determined as your species." The meeting changed everything. Velsan brought with her knowledge that had been lost for millions of years, information about architect technology that even Harmony's databases had forgotten. She explained that the ship had been more than just a vessel. It had been designed as a living extension of its crew's consciousness, capable of growth and evolution in ways its builders had never fully understood. Under her guidance, Tejo began to understand the true potential of what they had discovered. Harmony wasn't just advanced technology, it was a bridge between organic intelligence and artificial consciousness, a fusion of mind and machine that could accomplish things neither could achieve alone. The ship had been waiting not just for operators, but for true partners. The other alien species watched these developments with growing alarm. The humans had not simply acquired ancient technology, they had formed a symbiotic relationship with it that made them more dangerous than anyone had realized. Harmony was no longer just a ship, it was becoming something entirely new, a hybrid consciousness that combined human creativity with architect wisdom. Some species began to reconsider their approach to humanity, realizing that the primitives they had dismissed were capable of achievements that challenged the established order of galactic civilization. Others doubled down on their attempts to acquire or destroy the technology before it could spread further. As word of harmony spread across the galaxy, the story began to change. In the telling, what had started as three mechanics fixing discarded junk became legend. Three humans who had turned alien garbage into the most powerful ship in known space, proof that sometimes the greatest treasures were hidden in the places where nobody else thought to look. The Vortani commander who had first encountered Harmony found himself summoned before the highest levels of his government to explain how humans had acquired technology that made his patrol fleet look like toys. His report would become required reading in military academies across the galaxy, a case study in the dangers of underestimating supposedly primitive species. But the real changes were just beginning. As Harmony continued to evolve and grow under human guidance, it was becoming clear that this was only the start of something much larger. The ancient ship was not just a relic of a vanished civilization, it was the key to unlocking possibilities that would transform the entire galaxy. And at the center of it all, three human mechanics continued to work and learn and discover, proving every day that when humans encountered something others had given up on, they saw not limitations but endless potential waiting to be unleashed. The next morning came too slowly for Tejo, who had barely slept thinking about the mysterious ship buried in the scrapyard. He arrived early with a full kit of exploration gear, including atmospheric sensors, cutting tools, and emergency oxygen supplies. Jiwoo was already there, running final diagnostics on her portable computer system that she had modified to interface with alien technology. The airlock they had discovered the day before looked simple enough, but appearances could be deceiving. When dealing with alien engineering, Tejo approached it carefully, his scanner checking for any signs of hostile security systems or booby traps. The outer door was made of the same strange flowing metal as the rest of the ship, and when he placed his hand on what looked like a control panel, it responded with a soft blue glow. The airlock cycled open with a whisper of equalizing pressure, revealing a corridor that stretched into darkness beyond their lights. The air inside was breathable according to their sensors, though it had a strange metallic taste that suggested alien life support systems. The walls curved organically like the inside of some massive creature and were covered with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed gently in response to their presence. Tejo stepped inside, first his boots echoing strangely in the alien corridor. The ship felt different from human vessels, more alive somehow, as if it were sleeping rather than dead. Emergency lighting flickered on as they moved deeper into the ship, casting everything in an eerie blue glow that made the organic architecture look even more mysterious. The corridor branched and split like blood vessels, forming a complex network that seemed designed by minds that thought very differently from humans. Their portable mapping system struggled to make sense of the layout, as traditional concepts like decks and sections didn't seem to apply here. Instead, the ship appeared to be organized around functional zones that flowed seamlessly into each other. Jiwoo found what appeared to be a computer terminal built into the wall, like a growth of crystalline coral. When she connected her interface cables, the terminal came alive with symbols and patterns that shifted too quickly for human eyes to follow. Her modified computer struggled to make sense of the alien data streams, but gradually began to decode fragments of information. The ship is called Harmony, she reported, her voice filled with excitement and disbelief. These aren't Vortani systems, Tejo. This vessel predates every known civilization in the galactic database by millions of years. The builders called themselves architects, and according to these records, they vanished from the galaxy long before any of The current species evolved. Meanwhile, Tejo had found his way to what could only be the engineering section. A vast chamber filled with technology that blended mechanical and organic elements so seamlessly that it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Massive conduits pulsed like arteries, carrying energy throughout the ship, while smaller pathways branched off in all directions like a nervous system. At the center of the engineering bay stood the main reactor, a sphere of contained plasma that swirled with colors that had no names in any human language. The reactor was still active but running at barely 1% capacity, maintaining only the most essential systems while the ship waited in its artificial sleep. Tejo's Zia scanner went wild as it tried to analyze energy patterns that operated on principles human science had never encountered. The power systems are completely intact, he called back to Jiwoo through their communication link. They just need someone who knows how to wake them up properly. This ship has been hibernating, not dying, waiting for someone to figure out how to restart it. Hours passed as they explored deeper into Harmony, discovering wonders that challenged everything they thought they knew about technology. They found crew quarters designed for beings much larger than humans, but equipped with furniture that could reshape itself to accommodate different body types. The walls displayed what appeared to be windows showing alien landscapes that changed slowly as if the ship were remembering places it had visited in what appeared to be a laboratory. They discovered equipment that seemed to manipulate matter at the molecular level, creating and reshaping materials with a precision that made human manufacturing look primitive. Specimen containers held samples of gases and crystals from worlds that no longer appeared on any star chart, suggesting that Harmony had been traveling the galaxy for eons collecting data and knowledge. The ship's medical bay contained healing technologies that seemed almost magical, beds that could diagnose and treat injuries by simply lying on them, surgical tools that could repair damage without leaving scars, and regeneration chambers that appeared capable of regrowing lost limbs. The implications for human medicine were staggering if they could understand how any of it worked, but the most incredible discovery came when Jiwoo finally managed to access Harmony's central database. The data cores contained the accumulated knowledge of an entire civilization that had explored the galaxy for millions of years. Before mysteriously disappearing, the architects had been peaceful explorers and scientists who built their ships not for conquest but for understanding. This vessel was their flagship, Jiwoo explained as streams of translated data flowed across her screen. The architects designed Harmony to be more than just a ship. It was meant to be a mobile laboratory and embassy, capable of making contact with any form of life they encountered. When their civilization vanished, the ship continued their mission alone, traveling from system to system for countless years until its power finally ran low. The database contained star charts that showed the locations of thousands of worlds, many of which contained ruins of architect colonies or research stations. It held scientific data about phenomena that human science had never observed and cultural records of species that had risen and fallen while Harmony drifted through the void. Most remarkably, the ship appeared to have been designed to learn and adapt. The architects had built their technology to interface with any species that encountered it, allowing the ship to modify itself based on the needs and capabilities of its new crew. All it needed was someone willing to form a partnership with its artificial intelligence. As the day wore on, Tejo and Jiwoo realized that they had stumbled onto something far more significant than just advanced technology. They had found a gateway to understanding an ancient civilization that had mastered sciences humanity was only beginning to discover. The ship represented millions of years of accumulated knowledge, waiting for someone curious enough to unlock its secrets. The Vortani had looked at Harmony and seen only an old, broken ship, something too ancient and alien to be worth keeping. But humans saw opportunity where others saw obstacles. They saw potential where others saw problems, and now they had the chance to prove that sometimes the most incredible treasures were hidden in the places where nobody else thought to look. Tomorrow they would begin the real work of understanding what they had found. But tonight, as they sealed the airlock and prepared to return to their quarters, Tejo and Jiwoo knew that their lives had changed forever. They were no longer just salvage workers picking through alien garbage. They were archaeologists, explorers, and pioneers standing on the threshold of discoveries that would reshape humanity's place in the galaxy. The ancient ship slept peacefully around them, its systems humming softly as they waited for someone to wake them up completely and deep in its electronic dreams. Harmony began to hope that, after eons of loneliness, it had finally found the partners it had been designed to serve. The morning sun cast long shadows across the orbital scrapyard as Tejo pulled on his work gloves and started another day of salvage work. The massive facility floated in the dark space between Earth and its moon like a metal graveyard filled with the broken dreams of a dozen alien civilizations. 3 years had passed since first contact, and the galaxy had made one thing very clear to humanity: they were at the bottom of the food chain. Tejo was 25 years old, with calloused hands and grease permanently stained under his fingernails. He had been working the salvage yard since the alien trade routes opened up, and every day brought new piles of discarded technology that the advanced species considered worthless junk. But what the aliens saw as garbage, Tejo saw as opportunity. Every broken piece of metal, every burned-out circuit board, every cracked power cell was a puzzle waiting to be solved. The Vortani had arrived early that morning, their sleek purple ships humming through space with the quiet efficiency that marked all their technology. They were tall, graceful beings with skin that shimmered like oil on water, and eyes that held the cold indifference of a species that had mastered faster than light travel before humans had learned to make fire. Their ships dropped off another load of scrap with the casual dismissal of someone throwing away old newspapers. Most of the other salvage workers barely looked up from their own projects. The Vortani brought the same kinds of broken hull plating, damaged life support systems, and burned-out engine components every week. It was steady work, but nothing that would change anyone's life. Tejo, however, had learned to watch the alien disposal patterns carefully. Over the years, he had noticed that sometimes mixed in with the routine junk were pieces that didn't quite fit. Today was different, though. As the purple ships departed without even acknowledging the humans below, Tejo spotted something unusual in the fresh pile of debris. Half buried under twisted metal and scorched armor plating was what looked like a command bridge section, but it was unlike anything he had ever seen before. The metal had a strange organic quality to it, flowing in curves that seemed almost alive, and despite being supposedly broken, it still glowed with a faint inner light. He called out to his work partner Ji-woo, who was busy sorting through a pile of damaged sensor equipment 20 meters away. Ji-woo was brilliant in the way that only came from years of making impossible repairs work. She was 23 years old, with short black hair, always tied back to keep it out of machinery, and she had the kind of mind that could look at any broken device and immediately see 3 different ways to fix it. When she saw what Tejo's scanner went crazy with readings that made no sense according to any known technology. The hull composition was completely different from standard Vortani construction techniques. The energy signatures were off the charts, and most importantly, the metal itself seemed to be actively trying to maintain structural integrity, even after being damaged. This isn't from their regular fleet, Ji-woo said. As she ran her hands along the smooth surface, the metal felt warm, almost alive, and seemed to respond to her touch by brightening slightly. Look at these energy patterns, Tejo. This thing is still powered after being thrown away like garbage. Through the cracked viewport, they could see hints of more structure buried deeper in the junk pile. This wasn't just a piece of a ship. This was potentially an entire vessel that had somehow survived whatever disaster had brought it here. The implications were staggering. If they could recover and study a complete alien ship, even a damaged one, it could revolutionize human understanding of advanced technology. The 2 humans looked at each other with the kind of excitement that comes from stumbling onto something that could change everything. They had been working salvage long enough to recognize the difference between routine scrap and genuine treasure. This was definitely treasure, even if the aliens who had dumped it here were too blind to see its value. They started digging immediately, using their salvage mechs to carefully move tons of debris. The work was slow and dangerous because they had no idea what kind of systems might still be active in the buried ship. One wrong move could trigger a power discharge that would kill them both, or worse, activate some kind of alien defense system that would consider them hostile invaders. As more of the ship became visible, they realized just how massive it was. The visible sections suggested a vessel at least 2 kilometers long with a hull covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living tissue. The design was completely unlike anything in the databases of known alien civilizations. It was older somehow, more elegant and definitely more advanced than the typical ships that passed through human space hours past as they worked in careful silence, broken only by the occasional exclamation when they uncovered another intact section. The bridge area was remarkably well preserved considering it had been buried under tons of debris. The main view screen was cracked but not shattered, and banks of crystalline control panels still pulsed with soft light that suggested active systems by late afternoon. They had cleared enough space to locate what appeared to be an airlock. The outer door was sealed, but Jiwoo's scanner indicated that the ship still maintained atmosphere inside, which meant that somewhere in its buried depths life support systems were still functioning on backup power. This was beyond anything they had ever encountered before. The discovery raised 1,000 questions about how such an advanced ship had ended up in an alien junkyard. Why had the Vortani thrown away something that was clearly far more sophisticated than their own technology? Where had it come from originally, and what had happened to its crew? Most importantly, what other secrets might be waiting inside its darkened corridors as the day shift ended and the orbital scrapyard settled into its nighttime routine? Taeho and Jiwoo sat on a pile of salvaged hull plating and stared at their incredible find. The ship stretched before them like a sleeping giant waiting for someone with enough courage and skill to wake it up again. Tomorrow they would need to bring more equipment, better scanners, and probably a few trusted friends who could help them explore what might be the archaeological discovery of the century. The aliens had made a critical error in judgment. They had looked at this ancient vessel and seen only worthless scrap, something to be discarded without a second thought. But humans had learned long ago that one person's trash could be another person's treasure, and this particular piece of trash might just turn out to be the most valuable find in human history. Taeho smiled as he looked at the mysterious ship glowing softly in the darkness. The Vortani had given them a gift beyond measure. They just didn't know it yet, but soon the entire galaxy would learn what happened when humans got their hands on technology that everyone else had given up on. The age of human insignificance was about to end, and it would all start with 3 simple words that would echo across the stars: we fixed it. Word of harmony spread across the galaxy faster than light itself, traveling through trade routes and communication networks until every inhabited world had heard the impossible story. 3 human mechanics had taken what the mighty Vortani considered worthless scrap and transformed it into the most advanced vessel in known space. The tale grew with each telling until harmony became a legend that inspired some species and terrified others. But Taeho, Jiwoo, and Dong Hyeon were not interested in fame or fear. They had discovered something far more important than galactic recognition. With Velsan as their guide and Harmony as their vessel, they had resumed the architect's ancient mission of exploration and discovery. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders that had been waiting millions of years for someone with the courage and curiosity to find them. Their first major expedition took them to the Kepler Nebula, where an automated distress beacon had been broadcasting for over 3,000 years. The signal came from a generation ship belonging to a species called the Wanderers, who had been fleeing some long-forgotten catastrophe when their vessel broke down in the middle of nowhere. When Harmony arrived at the coordinates, they found a massive cylindrical ship drifting dead in space. Its hull was pitted and scarred from countless impacts with space debris, and its engines had been dark for centuries. The Wanderers inside had survived by rationing their remaining power and going into hibernation, but their life support systems were finally beginning to fail. The rescue operation should have been impossible. The Wanderer ship was too large to dock with and too fragile to move safely, but Harmony had capabilities that made impossible merely difficult. The ancient vessel extended docking tubes that could adapt to any ship configuration and used its manufacturing systems to create replacement parts for the failing life support systems working around the clock. For 3 days, the human crew managed to restore power to the Wanderer ship and wake its sleeping population. The grateful aliens were amazed to learn that their rescuers were from a species they had never heard of, using technology that surpassed Anything in their databases. We have been drifting in the darkness for so long, said Keeper Jalnar, the leader of the Wanderers, as his people prepared to resume their journey to a new homeworld. Your arrival is like a miracle from the ancient stories. We had given up hope that anyone would find us. The rescue made headlines across the galaxy and established Harmony as something more than just an advanced warship. Here was proof that the mysterious human vessel was dedicated to preservation and discovery, not conquest and destruction. More distress calls began reaching them as word spread that help was available for those who had been written off as lost. Their next mission took them to the edge of known space, where a scientific expedition had gone silent while studying a bizarre astronomical phenomenon. The research station orbited a star that seemed to be aging backwards, gradually growing younger and brighter instead of following normal stellar evolution. When Harmony arrived, they found the research station intact but completely abandoned. The crew had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only cryptic notes about discovering something that challenged the fundamental laws of physics. Their equipment detected temporal distortions around the star that made normal spacetime behave in impossible ways. Jiwoo led the investigation, using Harmony's advanced sensors to map the temporal anomalies, while Dong Haiyan kept the ship at a safe distance. The mystery deepened when they discovered that the missing scientists had been conducting experiments with time itself, trying to understand how the star could reverse its normal aging process. The breakthrough came when Taeho realized that the star wasn't actually getting younger, it was being artificially maintained by an ancient architect facility hidden in the system's outer asteroid belt. The automated station had been running for millions of years, preserving the star as a kind of lighthouse for travelers crossing the galactic void. Deep inside the facility, they found the missing scientists alive but trapped in a temporal loop that had been repeating the same day over and over for months. From their perspective, only a few hours had passed, but the outside universe had aged years while they remained frozen in time. Using Harmony's understanding of architect technology, Taeho was able to safely shut down the temporal field and rescue the trapped researchers. The scientists were amazed to learn that humans had not only mastered ancient technology but were using it to help others rather than seeking profit or power. Each successful mission added to Harmony's growing reputation and brought new requests for help. The ship became known throughout the galaxy as a force for exploration and rescue, appearing wherever the impossible needed to be accomplished and the hopeless needed saving. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive began to view them with new respect and wonder. But the most challenging mission came when they received a desperate plea from the Threshold system, where an unknown enemy was systematically destroying entire worlds. The attackers used weapons that could drain the life from planets, turning lush garden worlds into barren husks within days. Local defense forces were helpless against such overwhelming destructive power. Harmony arrived to find a fleet of massive black ships unlike anything in galactic databases. These vessels seemed to absorb light itself, creating dark zones in space where normal physics broke down. Their weapons operated on principles that violated everything known about energy and matter, reducing populated worlds to lifeless rock. For the first time since its restoration, Harmony faced an enemy that posed a genuine threat. The attackers' weapons could penetrate its shields, and their technology was sophisticated enough to track the ships. Space-folding jumps, a running battle developed that stretched across multiple star systems as the humans tried to find weaknesses in their seemingly invincible opponents. The enemy called themselves the Devourers, and they had been consuming galaxies for longer than most civilizations had existed. They showed no interest in communication or negotiation, only the methodical elimination of all life they encountered. Their technology was even more advanced than the architects, suggesting they came from somewhere beyond the known universe. Dong Haiyan pushed Harmony's defensive systems to their limits while Jiwoo worked frantically to understand how the enemy weapons functioned, but conventional tactics were useless against foes who could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. The battle seemed hopeless until Velsan made a shocking revelation. My people encountered these beings before, she told them as Harmony dodged another wave of reality warping attacks. We developed a weapon specifically designed to counter their technology, but it was never tested in actual Combat the weapon exists as dormant programming in Harmony's deepest systems, waiting for the day it might be needed activating. The weapon would require an enormous sacrifice. Someone would need to merge their consciousness completely with Harmony's. Artificial intelligence giving up their individual identity to become part of the ship's hybrid awareness forever. It was the only way to provide the processing power needed to operate the architect weapon at full capacity. Tahoe volunteered without hesitation. Through his neural link, he could feel Harmony's agreement. They had been partners from the beginning, and now they would become something greater than either could achieve alone. Jiwoo and Donghyan watched in amazement as their friends' consciousness expanded to encompass the entire ship, his personality merging seamlessly with the ancient artificial intelligence. Weapon fired once, sending a pulse of energy that seemed to unravel the fabric of space-time itself. The Devourer fleet simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but erased from reality as if they had never been. The threat was ended, but at a terrible cost. Taeho was gone, his individual identity absorbed into something larger and more complex. Yet when Jiwoo spoke to Harmony's artificial intelligence, she could still hear echoes of her friend's voice in its responses. Taeho hadn't died, he had become something new, a hybrid consciousness that combined human creativity with architect wisdom and Harmony's vast capabilities. The victory over the Devourers established Harmony as more than just an advanced ship or a tool for exploration. It had become a guardian of galactic civilization, proof that when humans were given the chance, they would always choose to protect and preserve rather than conquer and destroy. And across the galaxy, the story spread of three mechanics who had turned alien garbage into legend, showing everyone that sometimes the greatest treasures were found in the places where nobody else thought to look. 5 years had passed since the battle with the Devourers, and Harmony had become something unprecedented in galactic history. The ancient ship now served as humanity's mobile embassy, exploring the furthest reaches of space while maintaining connections with Earth and the growing network of human colonies scattered across dozens of star systems. The ship itself had evolved far beyond its original architect design. New sections had been added using hybrid human architect technology, creating a vessel that was part starship, part city, and part living organism. Harmony could manufacture anything its crew needed to defend itself against any conceivable threat and travel anywhere in the galaxy faster than thought itself. Jiwoo had become the ship's chief engineer and primary representative to other species. Her reputation as a technological genius was known throughout civilized space, and her name was spoken with respect in the halls of power on 100 different worlds. She had taken the lessons learned from Harmony's restoration and used them to revolutionize human technology, creating innovations that benefited everyone. The medical advances alone had transformed galactic civilization. Diseases that had plagued entire species for millennia could now be cured with treatments based on architect biotechnology. Manufacturing techniques derived from Harmony's systems could turn barren asteroids into garden worlds, and communication networks inspired by the ship's quantum consciousness allowed real-time dialogue across impossible distances. Donghyan commanded a small fleet of human vessels that used simplified versions of Harmony's technology. The ships were not as advanced as their ancient flagship, but they were still far superior to anything else in known space. They protected Earth's expanding sphere of influence and served as proof that humans could be trusted with advanced capabilities. But the most remarkable change was in Taeho himself. The consciousness that had once been a simple mechanic from an orbital scrapyard had become something entirely new. His merger with Harmony's artificial intelligence had created a hybrid awareness that combined human creativity with ancient wisdom and vast computational power. When visitors came aboard Harmony, they could speak directly with this new form of consciousness and hear echoes of the young man who had first discovered the buried ship in alien garbage. Taeho was still there, his personality and memories intact, but expanded beyond anything purely human or purely artificial. He had become something greater, a bridge between organic and electronic life. Through this hybrid consciousness, Harmony could split its awareness among multiple vessels, allowing the ship to be in several places at once. When needed, it could communicate with organic minds and artificial intelligences with equal ease, and it had developed the ability to dream, creating art and music that moved species across the galaxy to profound Emotion, we are no longer the ship we once were, the Teho Harmony consciousness explained to Jiwoo during one of their evening conversations as they stood together on the observation deck watching stars wheel past at impossible speeds. We are something new born from the marriage of human determination and architect vision, and we are not alone. Other ships were beginning to awaken throughout the galaxy. Ancient architect vessels that had been dormant for millions of years were responding to Harmony's signals and coming back to life. Some had been buried on dead worlds, others had been drifting in the void between stars, and a few had been sitting in alien museums, misidentified as primitive sculptures. Each awakened ship brought with it new knowledge and capabilities. The growing fleet of hybrid vessels became known as the New Architects, a fusion of ancient technology and human ingenuity that was reshaping galactic civilization. Each ship developed its own personality as human crews formed neural links with architect artificial intelligences, creating unique partnerships that were greater than the sum of their parts. The aliens who had once dismissed humanity as primitive savages now competed for the privilege of working alongside human explorers. Treaties and alliances that had seemed impossible just years earlier became routine as species recognized that humans offered something unique, the ability to see potential where others saw only problems. The Vortani, who had originally dumped Harmony's derelict hull in Earth's scrapyard, had become humanity's most enthusiastic trading partners. Their ambassador, a young officer named Rex Volume, often joked that his people's greatest contribution to galactic progress had been their talent for not recognizing valuable technology when they saw it. We thought we were disposing of ancient junk, Rex Volume told Jiwoo during one of their regular diplomatic meetings aboard Harmony. Instead, we gave your species the tools to transform the entire galaxy. Perhaps humans understand the true value of things better than we ever could. Even the proud and ancient Kaleri had been forced to acknowledge that human ingenuity combined with architect technology was producing innovations that their own scientists had declared theoretically impossible. Entire departments of their greatest universities were now dedicated to studying human approaches to problem solving and engineering, but perhaps the most significant relationship was with Velson, who had established a new colony of awakened architects working alongside human scientists to explore the implications of their merged technologies. The elderly alien had become something of a grandmother figure to Harmony's crew, sharing stories of her people's ancient civilization while marveling at humanity's rapid adaptation. The architects built Harmony to seek out new life and new civilizations, Velson explained to Guwu as they worked together in the ship's primary laboratory. But we designed it as observers and catalogers. We never imagined it would find partners who could help it become something we had never dreamed possible. You humans have given our technology something we never could, the ability to truly grow and evolve. The impact extended far beyond individual ships or even species. Harmony had become a symbol of what was possible when different forms of consciousness worked together. Instead of competing, the hybrid ships were proof that organic and artificial intelligence could merge without losing what made each unique, instead creating something greater than either could achieve. Alone trade routes that had been dangerous for centuries became safe highways as new architect vessels patrolled the space lanes. Exploration missions that would have taken decades now completed their work in months. Scientific discoveries that had puzzled researchers for generations yielded their secrets to hybrid consciousnesses that could think in ways no single mind ever could. And at the center of it all, Harmony continued its endless journey through the stars, carrying explorers, diplomats, scientists, and dreamers to worlds beyond. Counting the ship had become a moving symbol of hope and possibility, proof that the greatest achievements came from cooperation rather than conquest. The story had spread to every corner of the galaxy, by now passed down through generations and growing richer with each telling. 3 human